Hi, welcome to the Painted City podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Paula Lupton, and I'm here with.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patricia Byron, and I'm one of the hosts with Paula Lupton.
We want to welcome you all and thank you all for spending some time to listen to us when we're talking about the things that are passionate to us, our love of art, food, and music. One of the things we wanted to start talking about today was a little bit about who we are as people and as artists. And we're going to start with Patricia and a little bit about our journey to get us here to our first podcast.
Hi, thank you, Paula. That's a great introduction. Paula and I met at Creole Day School of Art just on a regular Tuesday afternoon. She's in my class, but even prior to that, we met, I believe, in an art journaling class, now that I think back. And I thought you were one of the fellowship students, and I was bossing her around. Not that I boss people around, but I was like, hey, she's here early, wonderful, she's here to help. And I'm like, hey, here. And she just went through the whole motions of being a fellowship student when she actually wasn't.
And then she asked me, hey, you're a fellow. What program are you from? I'm like, what's a fellow? And I will tell you, I was a fellow within the next 2 months, just so that we're clear. And it started my journey at Creole Day.
Yes, and it's been a lovely journey knowing Paula. She's come to my art classes, my abstract classes, and she's shown her work locally and soon to be beyond, right? And she's just a lovely person. And I would say our friendship has really blossomed. And yeah, it's just been a delight knowing you. And we got a wild hair one day in class, and I said, let's do a podcast. We both love books and art and music and coffee.
And coffee and travel.
And travel, yeah.
And, for us being Central Floridians, when we talk about why this podcast, why now, what on our journey got us here, Central Florida has so much to offer. We've met so many amazing people along the way, not just painters, but writers, musicians, advocates in the community. And we wanted to be able to share a little bit about this place that we call home, where we're building our own bits of career, whether it's through art or other things.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Paula, because when we first mentioned the name of the podcast, the Painted City Podcast, the immediate reaction was, "Oh, you both are painters, so this will be strictly about painting, won't it?" I said, "No, absolutely not. We will have painters. We will have writers, like Paula said. We'll have chefs, art educators, art administrators." Anyone that's done anything in the community or even outside of Central Florida. We hope to have some really interesting guests with people that have been an integral part of the community.
And if you all know of anyone, want to nominate someone, please find us on social media at the Painted City Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
Absolutely. And talking about guests, we have a lineup of some amazing future guests. We can't really divulge the names quite yet, but some of you already know. We've already hit you up, but some of the topics that we'll be covering will be arts and wellness. This is really important. It's just amazing. We'll be having some writers, people in the music business. It'll be absolutely wonderful.
We wanted this episode to be a little bit personal, to tell you a little bit about who we are. I am actually a social worker in the Central Florida community. I'm actually a born and bred native Orlandoan, so I've grown up in this area. And when we talk about passion and projects and advocate, building part of this community and being part of the community where I grow up, it was important to me. We get to see so many amazing people, and a lot of what took me into the arts was working with people at the worst. When I met Patricia, it was shortly after COVID. We were still actively in COVID, but that's when I took an art journaling class because I was trying to find different ways that I could help the people that I was working with. in a time when everyone was so isolated. And even I myself, as a social worker, I felt isolated because I was still out working in the community while so many people weren't. And part of the journey which led me to Patricia, and I strongly believe there's this old saying that says, when the student is ready, the mentor appears. And that's kind of how it happened for me. So when we look at this, that's kind of what pulled me into this. And when we talk about this podcast and our ability to share so many amazing conversations that we had, so many things where we get to bring up bits of ourselves that maybe we don't always get to show when we're an artist at an event, or when we're teaching a class, or when we're leading conversations. We get to be who we are, but we get to be the version that needs to be this. And we wanted this podcast to be the versions of who we really are, and to bring in some of the real talk that we do have, and how we support not only each other, but all of those struggling artists or people who are new. Because Patricia did put a brush in my hand and said, go forth and splatter. And I did. And,
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And then we joke because I used to make her nervous, and she would joke in class saying, it's always really weird to have a therapist writing down everything you say.
It is. It still is. I have several students that still write down everything I say. So I'm bribing them or trying to convince them to show their journals.
So if any of y'all have journals and Patriciaisms, please feel free to put it on social media. I still have over my wall, when you said no one's leaving till there's color on the page, and that's still on my art easel ever since you said that.
That's so funny. When they say, be careful what you say, be careful what you say.
Because we're going to immortalize it now in the podcast.
Yes.
But Patricia, how about a little bit about your journey? What got you here?
Yeah. Where do I start, man? Yeah. So, like you, I've spent a good chunk of my time here in the Orlando area. I'm based in Winter Park. I grew up in Naples, Florida, not Italy. A lot of people say Italy because I have some Italian heritage. So, no, Naples, Florida. Then we came to DeLand, delightful DeLand as a kid. People would refer to it as Deadland, but now it's a super cool hipster little oasis, and I still go back on occasion. Not enough to go visit. And then life kind of swept me over to the other side of the pond, and way over the pond to Turkey and Iran. I lived in Izmir, Turkey. A lot of people know of Istanbul, but Izmir is the third largest city in Turkey. And then I also lived in Tehran and Tabriz, Iran. Then I came back. It was right after, I would come back and visit throughout the years, like once or twice a year while I lived abroad. And then it was, I would say, right about 9/11, unfortunately, when that happened. I was here, and that was really a tumultuous time here in the United States. So I was getting a job I applied for a job at the Grand Bohemian for art sales, and there was a little bit of a stretch time in getting the news if I was hired or not, and there was like Homeland Security background check. But having lived in the Middle East, I think that might have put a little halt to that. But needless to say, I got the job, and then I went on to Crealde School of Art. I've always done art. I grew up in an artistic family. We had an antique shop growing up as a kid, so I was always around art and books and antiquities, so that was super cool. I really enjoyed being immersed in that. And then I went to Crealde School of Art. I went to the Maitland Art Center. I had a choice. A good friend of mine, Marcia Dabrowski, who is a studio mate here at Favo. Not mate per se, but she's like 2 doors down from us. And she said, I'm going to take you to the Maitland Art Center. I'm going to take you to Crealde. You make your choice. And long story short, Crealde was definitely the choice. And I've been there I started out as a student, fellowship student there, studio artist. And I always tell everyone, they say if you stick around long enough, they'll find you a job there. So I was asked to teach, and I did teach. I taught children's classes and outreach programs there. And because I'm an abstract painter, I was asked to teach an abstract class. And I was like, how do you do that, right? I know how to do it myself, but to teach it. So it's been a chunk of years I've been teaching that, and the classes have grown. It's been amazing. I've made some wonderful friendships, and the program's grown to 3 classes now. And we have several friends, a handful, more than that probably, that we're friends with.
Huh?
And I'm also the program manager at Grijalde School of Art. It's been 6 years doing that, and that's been fun. It's class curriculum, overseeing faculty. It's been a beautiful, wonderful art journey. And when we decided to do the podcast, this was just so right. And it's been over 2 years since we decided, and the timing is right. We talked about this, right, Paula?
But timing is everything. And I mean, I think you all at home understand. I mean, you have to wait for the time. You've got to get up and go for it, but you've got to wait for the time. And, Stephen King says if you want to be a writer, you got to do 2 things. You got to read a lot and write a lot. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be a podcaster, you got to do 2 things. You got to listen to a lot and practice a lot.
I love that quote. We both are quotes girls.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. You'll probably hear a lot of random quotes from us. I speak in pop culture ease in a lot of ways.
We speak in bumper stickers sometimes.
And one of the things that I love about Patricia is we have so much similarities in a lot of ways, but we have so much different. I mean, she says how she grew up in a home where there was arts. I did not grow up in a home where there was arts. My mom was always a bit of a poet, but I came from a different type of family, and a very blue-collar family. And it wasn't that we didn't necessarily talk about the arts. I grew up reading comics and things like that, but art was something that you look at and it's pretty, but when you grow up, like for my family, very blue collar, art traditionally, and I know that we can go on for that, they have this idea of starving artists, like there is no money, there is no pursuit, and you only get noticed when you're dead.
Right. We will dismiss that here.
Yes, we will dismiss that here, since so many people we know are working artists. Mm-hmm. But for me, the journey became a different way. I've always loved art. I've always loved seeing art and staring at it, something that can take you to a different place. And for me, I did a mini semester in South Africa. It was the first time I left the country. I just remember my dad saying, "You're getting a passport to go to Africa." It was very weird for them, and this was back in 2002 that I went. And I think Africa changed me a lot. Going to the museums there, looking at things that I didn't get to see. And for me, being on the southern hemisphere, to stare up and the stars, like I didn't have a North Star, because there they have the Southern Cross. I didn't have those things that we hold on for familiarity.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and since then I have traveled a lot. I've backpacked the British Isles. I've been to Bulgaria. I've been to Prague. I've been to Italy. I've been to France. And just recently I remember that I went to the Museum d'Orsay in Paris, and to actually stand in front of Starry Night, which if you are on our social media, you will see that Patricia put a picture that both of us, not planned, both have Starry Night notebooks that we've been writing everything in. To stand in front of that at the d'Orsay or the Rodin Gates of Hell, it just gives you these feels. And my love for art came with a love for travel, with a love for history, and with a love for the written word.
So beautiful. And it really reflects in who you are. It really does. I think it's Paula. I mean, I look at you. Is she going to talk to me about coffee today? Is she going to talk about a book today, or a new song that she's downloaded? a concert that she's going to. We do have so much in common, and we have some things that we're not exactly 100%
Oh yeah,
similar.
we're not
about.
twinsies.
Yeah. Like, she can't eat tomatoes, and I love tomatoes. I know that's just random.
But
stuff,
I
but that's
eat
important,
meat.
and I don't. So, yeah, I think this is a good. How can I say it? We talked about this. Such an important thing in these days of vulnerability and authenticity, and the way we wanted or want to structure this podcast is not to be cookie cutter and to sound robotic. We want to be vulnerable, and you mentioned that we're driving over to our studio today to Favo, and I love that. I said we're just gonna talk about vulnerability, being authentic, because I think this is something that's so important now, and I know it's been something tossed around a lot. Being your true self.
Yeah, and I'm going to say there's a fear with the word vulnerability. And I will be the first to admit it. As a social worker, that part of my career, it's like you walk in the door and it's no longer about you. You know, you have to remove so much of yourself to walk into the door and sit with people who are at their worst. When you're with someone else who's vulnerable, you don't necessarily get to be vulnerable. You get to be authentic, and I get to bring in a lot of who I am. But a lot of times, finding relationships or places where you can be vulnerable when you work or spent so much of your life, it can be a hard word. I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, yeah, Paula, you're not really vulnerable. And I was like, really? And then I said that to Patricia, and Patricia's like, what are you talking about? You're so vulnerable. And I'm like, and it really, when we talk about it, it kind of depends on the stage. We become who we need to be
At that moment.
At that moment in time. And for this podcast, we really wanted to, I'm going to go all Shrek. We wanted to be a parfait. We wanted to peel away the layers, a little bit of ourselves, so that we could push to really show people who the real us were, outside of when you see us at an art gallery, or outside of if you see me talking in the community about social work, or you see Patricia teaching a class.
I love that. So beautiful. And I think this will be so inspiring for our guests and hopefully for our listeners. And this is just something that we will expand on more. Again, this is a preliminary start. Can I say that?
Well,
it is a start. It's been a start for over 2 years now.
Yeah, this is the getting to know us portion.
And I'm all about, there's some people that just, they're like beasts. They get an idea, they run with it. We get an idea, we ponder, we think, we have coffee meetups. There's no right or wrong time. It's whatever works for you. And I feel like sometimes we have societal expectations where, okay, you have an idea. I'm snapping my fingers, yes. You must do it fast. Where's that podcast going? Where's that book that you've been you've been wanting to write? All of these things, and it causes a little bit of anxiety for the person, for the creative on the other end, because there is this expectation that you can do it all. And I think especially if you have a child, a grown child, I have a puppy, a 9-year-old puppy, but it's so true. I think we have to be able to take a breath, take deep breaths. I do them all the time. And I think it's so important, especially now in the society where everything is going so fast, at rocket speed. And going back to how long it took us to eventually bring this to fruition, I'm a firm believer. Do you want it done well, or you want it done fast? Do you agree?
Oh, I completely agree. And like I've said, one of my favorite quotes is, comparison is the thief of joy. When we talk about things, there are going to be people who can take an idea and go quick, and then Part of it, I will say, is I think we like having coffee and talking. That
Yes.
might have been a little thing that slowed us down a little. But it's also respecting everyone's artist process. And I think no matter which way we do things, and it's not even the artist way, we have to respect the process. And like you brought up an anxiety, this world right now has so much anxiety. And we have so much, just as we grow, there's uncertainty. There's job stressors, home stressors. You know, we are not just the one thing that we have. We all have so many dimensions that, and different roles, like mother, friend, wife, fiance, fur baby moms, because I have 3 cats and, you know, she's got Frida. We all have this bit of a duality in us. And sometimes we have to do things in our own time, and it's okay to do things in our own time. It's okay to wait a little longer. It's okay to mull over an idea and to take those, you know, those beats so that we can be our authentic self. One of the things that we wanted to do and get in the habit of for this podcast at the end is rapid fire questions. So we're going to try to rapid fire each other. I do say try. We're going to be a lot better off when we rapid fire other people. And let's see what we can do. All right, Patricia, let's go.
Favorite food city?
Chicago.
New York. Climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
Oh, I'm jumping from a plane. I don't like to, I don't run. I don't climb.
I'm climbing that mountain, baby. Fill in the blank. Art is
Breath.
necessary. Cake or pie?
Pie.
Pie, as long as it's a vegan pie. Sorry.
Oh, I miss the vegan pie that they used to have at,
Can we say it? Ethos. Please open up, Ethos. We miss you.
oh, that pumpkin pie was to die for.
If you could go back in time, what period would you go to?
I find this question very hard
You can have
because,
2 answers.
okay, so there's a part of me that would love to go to the Middle Ages. I would really love it, but I don't want to stay there. I don't want disease. I don't want to have to take care of my bowel movements in a bucket. I want to be able to shower. I would love to visit it because although we call it the Dark Ages, so much happened. Now, if I'm being real with myself, because I do have those kind of parameters, I would probably go back to the 80s as an adult instead of a teenager because I missed so much of the 80s. Like I started high school in 88. You know, I loved the 80s, but I was a 12-year-old. I wasn't an adult. I didn't get to go to the concerts. I didn't get to go do some of these things that I've got to see growing up that I knew were important. So I'm going to say the 80s.
But on occasion, you are vibing the 80s, so I can see why now after that answer. If I could go back in time, what period? Can I have 2 answers? Since you...
Of course.
Okay. Ancient Egypt.
Ooh.
I did, when I lived in Iran, I went to this, I guess she was a medium or a psychic. It was the Indian, I think it was the Indian, it was some festival. That's all I can remember. It was an Indian festival at the embassy. It was an embassy party. There was an Indian woman there that was reading fortunes, and she said that I lived in ancient Egypt. 5 years later, in Turkey, another reader said that I was from ancient Egypt. That's one. So, and I love anything Egypt. The second one would be France in the 1920s.
Good answer.
And gosh, I probably would love it so much I may want to stay.
See, I love that answer, and I love that answer for you. I used to tell my friends all the time that I would have also loved to go. Dorothy Parker had a group of writers with the Vicious Circles. I would have loved to have been part of the Vicious Circles.
Yes.
I can be snarky with the best of them, but that Egyptian thing, that really, I can see that, you know,
In me? Or you?
in you.
Oh,
In you.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
Walk like an Egyptian, I think I do.
Dang.
Dang. This will be exciting to do with our guests, knowing who some of our guests are. I can already see some of the cool answers that they may be giving.
And we do tell you, just in case you're studying this to be our upcoming guest, do not expect you're going to get the same questions every time.
Ooh, that's Paula. Be careful of her.
So please feel free to visit us on social media. If there is a topic, because I know a lot of you know us, an idea, a guest, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know your thoughts and opinions when we talk about Central Florida. Let's keep painting the city.
Yes, like Paula said, find us on social media.
At the Painted City Podcast on Instagram or Facebook.